darling. Come. Sit. Lovely to have you with us this day. This day. I got a little tongue-tied. So, welcome on this day. And today we are going to look at a avant-garde designer, a man by the name of Robert Wun. Now, many of you may not know Mr. Robert Wun. However, this is a man who should definitely be on your radar if you are interested in the land of fashion. First of all, he is a Hong Kong-born designer now based in London. And he is the only Hong Kong designer to be accepted into the Paris haute couture fashion world, if that means something to you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Listen, there's a lot of butt sniffing happening in that world. Let's not kid ourselves. And don't even get me started with all the craziness. Don't get me started with Balenciaga and all these people. Listen. There's a dark underbelly to the fashion world, let's just say that. And I do not want to have any part of it. All I want to do is create beautiful, bold design and appreciate those designers who are doing the same, such as Mr. Robert Wun. So, without further ado, let me make myself a little bit smaller. I'm a bit of a chunky monkey in the frame there. Okay, this is better. So, couture, fall-winter 2024. So this is last year's collection, and this gallery is called Time. And I have to say, darlings, I was quite impressed. Have a look. So one thing I noticed about Mr. Wun is that there's a lot of monochromatic. We start off here with looking like snow, and there's a lot of kind of slow motion effect, very theatrical here. So it starts off with this winter tone, winter vibe, black and white, a snowy silhouette. What do we see in front of us? This is like a Bedouin. This is somebody draped almost in a religious way, something like you would see out of the movie Dune. And yet, I am finding myself oddly drawn to this. Now, as a matter as practical, no, darling, much of fashion is not necessarily practical per se, but what this is showing me is creativity, originality. He is finding clean, sharp lines. This gives me the vibe of kind of classic Hiragana, Japanese kind of vibes, that kind of beautiful Chinese aesthetic, like in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon kind of things. Stunningly beautiful. First off, I'd like to commend Mr. Robert. This is quite the show. Gorgeous, darling. Absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so we've left the winter and the darkness, and now we see a bit more of a spring. Interesting use of all the butterflies. I don't know how I feel about them. Part of me kind of likes the whimsy of the butterfly. I like the use of a derby hat, oversized, and an oversized coat. Interesting. So I do believe, not that matters, this is technically, maybe that was a men's coat. Fascinating. And here we are, classic, beautiful. Again, Robert uses a lot of monochromatic, but here we notice that the birds in this creation, this is more inspired to me. It is almost as if I can see the butterflies and birds growing out of this beautiful white gown. The other one, the previous, the blue, it was pretty. It was okay. This is a bit more fire. Ooh. Speaking of fire, how do I feel about this? The poofy sleeves are a bit of a miss to me. While I do appreciate, again, these bold colors, again, this is a designer who is in your face. He is saying, look at me, but not in a goofy way, However, in this case, I'm not sure how I feel about the poofy sleeve. Overall, though, his collection is striking, darling. Interesting. And this? This looks more of like a this occurs to me as inspired by like a pile of leaves. You know what I mean? Like a pile of autumn leaves. And this person, this model is kind of like walking out of an autumn leaf pile. Interesting. There are parts of it that I like, there are parts that I don't. So this is a interesting, switching over from red to pink. We started off in black and white, and we've moved to color, and now we've come to pink. So a bit more pastel, beautiful roses, a bit of a spring aesthetic, sort of like a cherry blossom aesthetic. And who does not love a beautiful cherry blossom, darling? This is pretty. I think so far my favorite though is number 2. Oh, goodness. Goodness gracious. I mean, there's monochrome and then there's monochromatic, darling. Part of me is like, what is this, Green Man from Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Another part of me is like, holy bananas. This is a striking costume. No, you certainly wouldn't want to be on a set with this. They could disappear you if they wanted to. Green screen joke, darling. However, I must admit, the combination of this model, let me pause that for a moment. Let me go back to that for a second. Come here. Let me go back to that just for a moment, and I pause. This model, the combination of that green, which is ironically, it is the color of a green screen green, in a weird way, works. I'm a bit surprised. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about this. And at first glance, I literally thought of Green Man. However, upon closer inspection, noticing the beautiful, my goodness, the dark, beautiful black skin tone of this model. Oh, the combination with this green is a very striking combination. I will give this to him. This was at first glance. And at a deeper examination. Oh. Go on, Mr. Wun. Go on. You could almost be... before I talk about that. The monochromatic could also almost get a little bit boring. However, notice the texturing. Notice how there's so many layers of texture, including the banding on her back, and then the drape with the drape, and then the way the fabric drapes and creates these beautiful lines of contrast. So, and while it is monochromatic green, you end up seeing green and black, and these deeper shades of green kind of weaving in and out of the garment. This is fascinating, darling. Quite striking. And I know that Robert has designed for Beyonce, Celine Dion, Cardi B, and other, Lady Gaga. So this is a man to be watched. This is new. This is beautiful, darling. Go on, and now we're gonna switch over to, Frank Miller, Sin City. This is getting me again these beautiful black and white, but this is so striking that it almost looks like a comic book live, and if I did not see the people in the audience next to it, I would almost think that this was done by a trick of lighting. My goodness. Practicality I don't like things covering the face too much, but I see why he's doing it. It does provide an air of mystery. Let me go back a moment. That was striking. So it does provide an air of mystery, as well as demureness, as well as anonymity. It's kind of like the faceless person, like the unknown soldier kind of a vibe. It's interesting. Not practical, not necessarily something I would recommend for most people, but it comes across as a bit almost, what is the word I'm looking for? Funeral-like. So what is that word? Melancholy? No. Morbid in a way almost. Because I don't traditionally view veils along with life. However, again, you wouldn't necessarily wear what you see on the runway in the normal world, darling. There'd be a variation toned down. But you see where he is going with this, and again, his use of color is fascinating, with the light and the shadow making this almost appear as a cartoon. Fascinating. Go on. Okay. So we switch from that to a rose, a light pink, corseted. But again, the way he drapes fabric I find beautiful, darling. Very, very intentional. Very intentional. I was about to say, I don't know if I like this one, but this man has a way of growing on you. I'm not going to lie. Because again, there are parts of what he's doing which are impractical. Like all of the flowers and things and all of the butterflies. But there are other parts of what he's creating. Oh my goodness gracious. The fiery rose. This is striking. This is very striking. Although if I'm being honest, no, this one doesn't work for me. No, not as much as the others, darling. I think it is perhaps around the mid-waist area. It is a bit too just... I don't know. Let me go back a second. What I'm looking for here, what am I looking at? What am I reacting to? I don't like seeing too much of people's undergarments or the no-no places. There's something, it is always very distracting, okay, when there's too much tight kind of like skin reveal, if you will. I find it a little bit distracting, whereas the previous gowns, beautiful, form-fitting, elegant. There's something about the way that I could see the model's waist and hip line that for me personally occurred to me as a bit gauche, but you know, to each their own, darling. Moving on. Okay, so now, oh yes, again, not bad. I like the draping. I don't even mind the color, but pink fiery rose. Okay. My issue with this is I don't like it when people look like cake toppers. This occurs to me as when I see that piece of fabric in the front, like that hard piece of fabric, it's like a weird, like it feels like a piece of chocolate that I'm gonna break, or this feels like a piece of cookie, you know, yum yum cookie. This feels like I want to snap off a piece of that cookie rather than admire the gown. I am distracted by the cookie nature, which personally is not my favorite. And this monochromatic with this fuchsia, it does not seem to lend itself to the dramatic multiple tones of some of the other colors. Like even the black and white, there was a lot of gray, and even the beautiful green showed many multiple tones of green emerald and dark green and forest green and light green. Whereas this, it doesn't, maybe it's the material, it doesn't seem to have doesn't create the contrast that I was excited about in the earlier gown. Let's continue. But yeah, I don't like feeling like you are wearing a crumbly cookie. Yeah, doesn't work for me. But I appreciate what he's doing here, and not everything is going to be hit out of the park, darling. Ooh, hello, yellow fire. Again with the veil, mystery, bit morbid maybe. I'm guessing blue is coming out next, but this is interesting. So here we have a combination of like the masculine and the feminine, yes? Interesting draping going on here with what kind of traditionally might be considered a men's button-down shirt, clearly opened up, revealing some of the cleavage, and even a bit of a, it also kind of reminds me a bit of Anna Wintour from when she did her last fashion show, the Met Gala, where what you see here is it's a men's coat, okay, but it's very carefully draped and almost as like it's been set on fire, okay. I can see like these like burn marks. I don't know how I feel about the burn marks. Interesting choice. I like a lot of this. I don't know how I feel about it being singed. That is an interesting choice. That me is a bit of a gimmick. Not as aesthetically pleasing to me personally. Yeah. Bit of a gimmick. Interesting though. So yeah, we have the blue fire this time, but like a crushed velvet. Okay. So this time, again, covering the eyes. So not a full veil, but covering the eyes with an interesting hat. I like the aesthetic. I like the hat. This is almost something you could wear in public. It's a bit intense. You have to really be able to own it, if you could. I mean, this is something that Lady Gaga or Cardi B could pull off. Most mortals could not, darlings. Most mortals could not. Okay, crushed velvet this time. We're going with the fuchsia. And I see behind we have something white coming out. This is, again, not my favorite. The fuchsia color for me is less successful for Mr. Robert than many others. Interesting going back. So now we're kind of switching seasons again. It feels like back to more winter. More black and white. Okay. To me, not as successful. And then you got a bit of an umbrella on your head. I mean, the previous I felt like there was the birds kind of like coming out of the dress and making sense. This feels a bit more hodgepodge and just wearing a straight up umbrella on your head. It's a very, don't get me wrong, this is a very haute couture chic umbrella. Doesn't really work. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at this. Hang on a second. That is it. This is a, wait a minute. Let me look at that. Okay, don't hate the messenger on this one. But I'm getting Georgia O'Keeffe vibes. I'm just saying it. I'm not mad at it. And the layering in this case is fascinating. It is playful. This is a playful costume here. This is interesting. This is the same model that we saw earlier in the green, perhaps. I like this model. She is very successful at what she's doing. I'm definitely getting Georgia O'Keeffe vibes, keeping in line with nature and so forth, but it's suggestive in a kind of a fun, playful way. So, okay. But I also almost get like candy vibes off of this, but for some reason I didn't like it when it was a cookie, but the layering on this I find more fascinating. And the movement, interesting. Hang on. The more I'm watching, do I like it more or less? No, you know what? The more I watched it, the less I liked it. Creating all these layers and aesthetic, what ends up happening is it kind of looks like everything is made out of like a foam finger. You know those foam fingers you get at the basketball game? You know, we are number one. And it's like the foam hat, like the Arby's hat. So it gives that structure, but it ends up looking kind of bouncy. And when it's still, I think this is aesthetic. But when she moves, I feel like I get foam finger vibes, which for me is unfortunately not as interesting, darling. It works better in slow motion, but yeah, when you watch it in regular speed, unfortunately, this particular design, for me, darlings, falls a little bit flat. Ooh, here. Ooh. Now this is more interesting. Again, I get with the kind of distressed feel we've done a couple of times, with that sort of distressed look. This is more interesting. Striking. Again, monochromatic, gray-black, this time pop of gold. And I almost feel like, was there some kind of a distress? Maybe look a little closer. Let's continue. So we have like a full body kind of a corset feel. So instead of a skirt, it's like a full body corset with a very structured, well, basically a corset top as well. But the netting and the roping on the front, fascinating. Unveiled, but no eyes, keeping that sort of mystery, that dark mystery. But this is a striking bit of fashion here. Bravo, Robert. Ooh, I like the back too. I don't know how I feel about the extra fabric kind of poofing off the hips. That seems like maybe a bit much. Simple. Wait a minute. So this is all about the hat. We have what appears to be a relatively simple gown, a simple garment, a shirt and tights. However, with that hat and that skirt seems to be like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's kind of bursting out. Like it's like, have you ever taken? There's a plant. It's called a cattail. Okay, it's called a cattail, and it makes like a brown like bump at the end of it. And in the wintertime, if you pick it apart, it kind of bursts open, and like all this fluff, all these seeds kind of like burst out of them, these cattails. This reminds me of that, like this is like kind of bursting out of her hip. I don't know how I feel about that. No, this is not as successful to me. It is, but on the other hand, like, would you almost wear this in public? No. I don't know. I see what he's trying here. This is not my favorite. Okay, I like it a bit more classy, a bit more elegant. Alright. Sort of like leaves on fire. Okay. Interesting. I like watching the movement in real time. How does the dress flow? How does the fabric behave in these circumstances? Fascinating. This one is a bit of a miss for me. Bit of a miss. It's almost like a play on a baseball hat. And I told you earlier how I felt about these kinds of things where you can... I think it's a bit gauche, and I think it pulls away from the aesthetic of the gown. Okay, moving on. Ooh. Ooh. It's almost like a deconstructed suit. This is more interesting, like a deconstructed suit. Okay, again with the veil derby hat style, monochromatic silver this time. I find this one more interesting, more appealing, fascinating. And ironically, with the last outfit, I'm sure there was a tremendous amount of time spent on. Now, this is just a costume. The tremendous amount, I'll back up a little bit, I'll tell you what I mean. Even though it looked simple, I bet, if we go back a moment to here, let me pause, okay? The irony is I bet a tremendous amount of thought and design went into that, what is essentially a tank top, right? But, you know, overall, not as successful. Not as successful, but I can appreciate some things. It doesn't work as much for me. But going back to new, so this is, we're kind of getting into, you know, like real costumey territory. There's a value in this, of course. We're gonna push the edges, and then you can kind of once you bust through the Overton window, then you can kind of pull it back, right? But you got to do that big shot across the bow, and then you pull it back, darling. But this is again almost Halloweeny, in a way, with the long nails, the tall head. I mean, it's a look. Fascinating. Fascinating use of the golden yellow and the textures. Interesting boots. Yeah. Interesting as far as what would you call it, a showpiece. Not quite as much as something that I would say is more practical or useful, but, you gotta mix it up a little bit. Gotta keep the audience on their toes. Oh my goodness. This reminds me of, like, a human muscle shirt, only it's a dress. Okay. That's a bit sort of like you've been skinned and yet you're wearing a dress. Okay. It's a look. It's a look. I don't know how successful this is, but it's definitely going for something very bold. It's almost like you can see the muscles outlining throughout this gown. So there's a kind of vulnerability in the stripped downness of it. It's like revealing the inside of you. Fascinating. Bit more serious, bit darker piece in some ways. Interesting piece. And speaking of darker, we went from muscle to bone. So now we're entering the surreal. And it's a fascinating idea to have like a human skeleton, but this is certainly not something that would work on a normal level unless you went to a costume party. Yeah, the dangling skeleton arms, it's a bit more of a gimmick to me. The floating ribcage, the mask. It's certainly surreal. It certainly makes a statement. I would not want to run into this person in a dark alley. That is for sure, for certain. Again, Robert is throwing in, some of his whimsy here. Some things more practical, some things on the pure whimsy side. And look at this. The universe. A walking human galaxy. Beautiful. So she has stars, you see. That's what this is. She is a walking galaxy. Interesting. Classic beautiful line. And this is what I think the veil actually works in this one. I am so close to loving this, and yet I am torn. Again, a lot of whimsy here, a lot of creativity. There's a combination of surreal, practical, boldness. Overall, I must say this was a very inspired collection. Very inspired collection. It's not going to be for everybody, but I appreciate that he's doing something very unique. He's doing something very unique. So, we'll pause that there. So, darlings, thank you for coming. Thank you for enjoying Mr. Robert Wun's 2024 Fall Collection, Fall Couture, titled Time. I think we're going to see more of Mr. Robert in the future. Until the next time, darlings, have a lovely evening. Okay. Wait, that's not what I want to do. Close enough. Okay, bye-bye.